topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good morning, Atlanta. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show where we bring you Atlanta's finest experts in legal, health, financial, and home improvement. What we do on this show is we try to bring experts in, people who you ask us the categories to bring on. And one of the biggest, requests that we have gotten has been a personal injury attorney. And we were so lucky because we actually got the attorney who was on our radio show probably like 4 years ago. And I'm so excited that we've gotten, I think, one of the finest personal injury attorneys in Atlanta. And we know you have a lot of choices, but I want to introduce you to attorney Todd Henningsen. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
We're doing great. This is our first TV show. Yes. And so just remember, you ask and we bring you who you want. And since we've started promoting Todd this week coming on the show, we've already gotten about 10 emails from people telling us how glad they are we have a personal injury attorney. And even one of Todd's ex-clients saying he did such a great job for him. Todd, before we start the show, I just want to say something. My brother thinks he's a great negotiator. He was in an automobile accident. So he said, I'm going to save some money and just negotiate it myself. You're already laughing already, Todd.
Yes.
And also, before we start, because I want to get this on the scroll, give everybody your phone number.
Sure. It's 404-835-4935. 24/7, 365. Give us a call.
Very good. Okay. So my brother will now tell you, Mr. Smart Guy, that he could have probably gotten 10 times the amount of money if he would have had an attorney and not do it himself. Because a lot of people don't even know how you get paid.
Right. We work on a contingency fee basis. So there's no fee unless we make a recovery. Right. And we will front all of the expenses. I mean, there's been studies that have been done that show that lawyers can get up to 6 times more than the average person. And even after paying the lawyer, you're going to get more money. I can give you a specific example of that. I had a client who called me up and said she was offered $15,000. I said, can you come into the office? Let's sit down and look at what's going on with your case. And had she accepted the $15,000, there was a health insurance lien that she had to pay back that exceeded $15,000. She would have gotten the $15,000 and ended up with zero. So we took a look at it. I said, I can help you. The policy limits were $50,000. We got the $50,000 immediately. And then we negotiated on the health insurance lien. So she went from zero to netting a significant amount of money.
Well, I wanted to give my son's story because he said, I was so stupid. I should have gotten an attorney. But hey, that's what happens. Todd, tell people about your firm and yourself.
Sure. So I've been practicing personal injury for 22 years. I've had my own law firm for about 11 years now. And when I started off early on in my practice, I was mentored by one of the best, I think, in the country. I started off in Richmond, Virginia, before I came to Atlanta. And he was president of the Virginia Trial Lawyers Association, very well known as a trial attorney. As a matter of fact, before I passed the bar, I was in a trial where we, got a verdict of $1.5 million. And I obviously wasn't doing too much at that point. I was just very green coming out of school, but I got the opportunity to try a number of cases. And, what I would say is, sometimes they would put that case on a leash and walk it down the hall and say, Todd, go try it. Now, but we had success. We were very successful. And so that gave me the trial experience. And then I started to learn how a law firm operated. How do you do this? How do you do it efficiently? And when I came to Atlanta, I worked for a large, what I would call settlement mill, if you will. It's a different type of practice. And I didn't enjoy it. I make it a practice in my firm. I'm never going to take more than the client receives, ever. I mean, it's just bad for business, but it's also, the client is the person who got hurt. So if your fee is $5,000 or $10,000 and the client's getting $4,000, that's unfair. So I've taken those practices into my firm. And what we have done is we've somewhat overhired, because the number one thing that I hear is a lack of communication from the attorney. You can be doing the best work in the world, but if you're not communicating that to the client, they don't know. So we want to make sure that we are in touch with you, that we are telling you, this is what we've done, this is where we are, and this is what we expect to happen. And we work a case from backwards to forwards. What would happen at trial? What do we need to prove at this point, right? And so we'll conduct the investigation, do all of those things that we need to do, knowing how to go try a case. You need an attorney that, in my opinion, specializes in personal injury. It's changing all of the time. And you want an attorney that has trial experience. You need to ask those questions if you're deciding on an attorney, because sometimes they think, oh, well, I'll just take this case. They'll just pay me. No. Insurance companies know who tries cases and who doesn't. It's almost binary. It's a
You know what, Todd? You are hitting a home run with me on this. First of all, customer service is very important to you.
Yes.
But you look at this the train wreck, so to say, and the insurance company is out there offering people $1,000.
Yes.
Now they're hoping they don't have an attorney, because an attorney like you is never going to let your client sign something like that.
No.
That's why customer service is so, and it happens in every city, not just with a train derailment.
For example, I can give you a quick example. Anecdotally, there was a bus wreck, and people all went to the emergency room. And as they were in the emergency room, they had cash. The insurance adjusters, they had cash.
Wow.
And they were saying, hey, sign here. We'll give you $500 right now, and we'll pay that emergency room bill. And fortunately, my client called me and had some significant injuries, and we were able to get a lot more than that.
Yes.
So, and the same holds true for really like a tractor trailer wreck. Anytime there's a big rig wreck, the attorneys and adjusters have a ton of information about that, especially if it's catastrophic or if there's something significant going on. So we are behind the eight ball, and the sooner the better on that. I never try to create a sense of false urgency. I will tell people when they call in, look, decide who's the best lawyer for you. Decide if you want a lawyer. There's no rush. Sometimes I say there is a bit of a rush on this because evidence is going to go away. So we want to send something called a non-spoliation letter under Georgia law, which makes them preserve that evidence so that we can get the same access to the same information that they have. And I found that we can download black box data. There's GPS systems. There's log books, all of those things. And all of a sudden, things change in terms of what we're talking about.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I had an experience with American Airlines losing my luggage. And I said, this is so easy. I can just do it myself. I got to tell you, until I hired an attorney, they were laughing at me.
Yes.
I mean, it was like, this guy doesn't know anything about the law at all. We'll just keep pushing it off. First of all, what we're trying to tell you is any kind of injury situation. And I want to get into that because it could be a dog bite. Sure. I mean, it could be, you hear about these things with nursing homes and what's happening, wrongful death, that you got to have an attorney. And what we are seeing with this show is people see the credibility that our experts have, and they literally write the phone numbers down. Because listen, you never know when you're going to get hurt. You never know when you're going to be in an automobile accident. And to have someone, I mean, listen, Todd, I used to have people look at who had the biggest Yellow Page ad when they were looking for a personal injury attorney, and now it's like, who's got the best website? That's
Right.
not how to choose an attorney.
And there's restrictions on how attorneys can advertise. I can't say I'm the best attorney.
Right.
There's no objective measure of the best attorney. And what I say to people is, I think that I'm one of the better attorneys. There's a number of attorneys out there, and if you're not comfortable with me, I'll give you the names of those guys. But if you're seeing people on TV who have what I would call settlement mill, I would be concerned about that, because you're one of thousands of cases. When you come to me and we accept your case and we want to work with you, we're going to put it all out there, and we're going to be honest. The one thing that I think that some people do is promise rainbows and unicorns, and you're going to get all this money to try to get a case. That's not really not what's happening. They see on TV, oh, I got $500,000, and I'm standing here telling you this. Well, that's not the norm. That's not what really happens in cases, because you're limited by the amount of insurance that's available 99 out of 100 times. And so you could have a $10 million case, but there's only $500,000 in coverage. Well, there's ways around that in certain situations that's probably too detailed for right now. But just know that if you call us and we're talking to you, we're going to be very honest about it. And we may have more questions than answers until we get into the case. But if we're accepting the case and we're moving forward with it, we have faith that we can be successful. And, I say this, any lawyer can take a $2 million case and turn it into a $1 million case. But it takes a good lawyer to take a $2 million case and turn it into a $3 million case. And that's the difference. And if I don't know the answer to a question, which I hope I do, most of them I do right off the rip, we're going to find out the answers. We're going to get those answers. We're going to know what's going on. So
Todd, tell everybody what type of law, different areas of law and personal injury you cover.
Sure. So in personal injury, really it's about negligence, right? It's auto accidents. That's the primary thing that we cover. We also have dog bite cases. There's products liabilities claims. There's medical malpractice claims. There's slip and falls, premises liabilities. There's what we call a third party negligent security, where someone may have been a victim of a crime where there should have been better safety. There's, I'm working on a Boy Scout case right now that is got terrible facts, as you probably know. It's in the headlines. We have a claim right now against Snapchat that's made headlines, and we're deep into that right now. It's been going on for years, and so there's all sorts of personal injury, right? Wrongful death, wrongful arrest, all of these components. But really what you're talking about in these cases is there a standard of care? Is there a duty? Which that's negligence. You have a duty to drive a car properly and follow the laws. If you fail in that duty and you cause injury to somebody, then you're responsible. And, specifically in car accidents, because that's most what I do. But you can even divide up car accidents to tractor trailer. You can divide it up into logging trucks. I mean, there's a specific set. There's Uber and Lyft. That's a specific set. So we do all of that. We know
boating also, right? Boating.
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah. And I'm a avid boater. I try to get out on the water as much as I can. So I know a lot about that. I mean, yes, there's maritime law, which we don't see a lot of in Atlanta, but if you're in Savannah, yes, that's going to be different.
Right.
Skiing accidents. I mean, I've handled that. Drownings, unfortunately, right? Typically failure to supervise, and it's a person who can't swim. There's all sorts of various cases, but the primary theme throughout it is you have to be injured. Is there an injury? And then your gut will tell you if something is wrong with that. Why did this occur? Is there something there? And so specifically, I go with my gut as well. This doesn't sound right. This doesn't feel right. And then you start to think, if a jury of 12 people, what if they heard this? And you develop the facts around that, and all of a sudden you've got a case. So if you've been injured and you don't believe it's through any fault of your own, give us a call. It's that simple. And I would say this, so Georgia has some nuanced laws, right? Especially when it comes to auto accidents. When I practiced in Virginia, they were called a contributory negligence state, which means that if you're 1% at fault, right, you don't make a recovery. In Georgia, it's a comparative negligence state, which means that you just have to show that you are 49% not at fault, and the other party is 51% at fault.
Wow.
So
that's different here in Florida.
Yes.
Hey, Guy, we're getting, I guess a lot of people are listening on radio today. Everybody wants your phone number, which we were going to absolutely give out. It's being done over TV right now, but it's 404-835-4935. It's 404-835-4935. A lot of people are asking about your fees. Are they regulated by the state?
They are not. So, let me say it a different way. Workers' compensation is regulated. If it's a workers' comp case, that's tied at 25%. If it is Federal Tort Claims Act, which means that you're going after a federal entity, think like a VA hospital in a medical malpractice case, or an FBI agent hits you or something like that. That is capped. But it's not regulated, but there's an industry standard. And it's typically 1/3 of the total recovery. So if we recover $9,000, my fee would be $3,000, and the client would receive $6,000. Now, here's the thing: you've got to pay medical bills out of that, or you may have a health insurance lien, which are very active. So the way that you can maximize value in these cases is you've got to get the settlement offer as high as you can possibly get.
Right.
That's one aspect of it. Then you've got to get the wolves that are trying to take your money away from you to take less. And that can be negotiating with medical providers if you don't have health insurance. If you have health insurance, they may have a right to what's called subrogate. That means they say, we paid out money on your behalf and we want our money back. But this is the most important part about it. If you have health insurance, use it. And I'll tell you why, because this is how the system works in terms of medical expenses. If you go to the hospital and you have a $5,000 bill, your private health insurer will have a negotiated rate with that hospital. So the bill's $5,000. You may have a copay of $200, $500, whatever it may be, and then the hospital may reimburse them $1,000. Okay, we get to claim the full $5,000. It's called the collateral source doctrine. We get to claim the full $5,000. The auto insurance carrier owes the full $5,000, but you may only owe back $1,000. Now, that is something that really sticks in the craw of defense attorneys, because they say, well, look, he doesn't really owe that much back. But we would never get a case settled in this state, because that's the only way in some cases that you can make the money to get that to the client. So my job is to evaluate whether or not that is a valid health insurance lien, because they may not be valid. If it's Medicare, Medicaid, yes. If it's what's called a fully self-funded ERISA plan that disavows the made whole doctrine that's in the plan language, then yes, they have a right to it. That's federal law. But under state law, they do not have a right unless they can prove you are fully and completely compensated. I know that's a mouthful, but that's the devil is in the details on that. And that's sometimes people just contact me and say, look, just take over my case. I don't understand what in the heck is going on here. People are coming out of the woodwork. I've got a hospital lien that they filed. I've got this. And one other thing that happens a lot of times, you've been injured, you've been taken by EMS to the emergency room, you do have private health insurance. The hospital doesn't want to bill your private health insurance for what I just talked about. They know they're going to accept less money. So they'll act like they didn't receive that private health insurance, and they'll file what's called a hospital lien. So they'll file a lien for $5,000, whereas if they would file with health insurance, they would only get $1,000. So they're trying to take $5,000 from you. under your settlement. So what we do is we send letters saying, build a health insurance, build a health insurance. You have to. You're in network. You need to do this. So that's another way that a lawyer adds value. And that's what I was talking about. Settlement number, right? That's one. Getting everybody to take less, navigating those waters. And you may have something called medical expense coverage that covers you even if you're at fault. If you drive off the road and hit a telephone pole and you're injured, you can collect under your policy if you have medical expense coverage. It's like no fault insurance.
Todd, I got to tell you, this is one of those shows that we could go on for an hour easily. And a lot of people are asking about auto accidents, which I promise you next month we will we can do a whole show on auto accidents. Give everybody your phone number. It's 404-835-4935. Let me just say one quick thing. I just want to caution everybody about auto accidents. What happens is, if there's a witness, get their information, if you're able, right? If you are not injured, take photographs, call the police, document the scene, videotape it, anything that you can do to preserve that evidence, because I can tell you what'll happen. I've seen it way too many times. The other driver will say, I'm so sorry, it's my fault. A teenage driver or whatever it is. So you go, oh, I want to be nice. We won't get the police involved or whatever. Get the police involved, document it, and make sure that you take the photographs and get them. I mean, I was in an auto accident. I said, okay, I'm going to record you telling me that it's your fault. Okay. And they're fine with it at the scene, but so many times it changes. It changes. They go back home. They go, oh, I don't want my insurance rates to go up. If it's a teenage kid, they go to their parents. The parents say, I'm not paying that insurance. I'm not, right.
Your rates are going to go up. So then they just deny it. They deny that they did anything wrong. So we got to get out of here. We have our next show coming up. Todd will be back with us again next month. I promise you. And all the people telling us what a great show today. Thank you. Todd, we'll see you next month. All right. Thanks, Steve-O.
Thanks, buddy. That's Todd Henningsen, and he is a personal injury attorney. Our next show is, if you have a business and you are thinking about selling your business, we have got the greatest business broker, I'd say, in all of America, because they're in a lot of cities. Our business broker here handles the Atlanta, Georgia area, and they are going to be coming on with us in just a minute. It's the Sunbelt Business Brokers, and we are going to be talking about manufacturing companies. What we do is we break it down each month or each show, because Sunbelt's actually with us every month. Or every week, I'm sorry. They're with us every week. They do the 1025 show. And you can really, I got to tell you, you can really learn so much about selling your business, why it's important to have a business broker. And like I said, we're waiting for Doreen Morgan. She heads up the Atlanta for Sunbelt. There she is.
Hi, how are you?
Good morning, Doreen. I was just telling everybody about how important your firm is. In fact, what we do, and Doreen's with us every week. She's the second show, but today's show is, like I told you before, is actually brought to you by Sunbelt Business Brokers of Atlanta. They specialize in selling your business. Contact them today to set up an appointment by calling Sunbelt Business Brokers at 770-936-9099. And we're going to be talking about selling manufacturing business, which I am really excited to hear about. Good morning, Doreen.
Good morning. How are you?
We're doing good. I'm glad you made it. I don't know what, email is just, I heard someone talking about the other day how people's emails are disappearing. They're not showing up. And I actually had that problem this morning. We sent Doreen the link to the show. So tell everybody about Sunbelt Business Brokers, who I am just a huge fan of.
Okay, well, Sunbelt Business Brokers, we're a network of 250 offices in 10 countries. Sunbelt Atlanta has been based in Atlanta since 1998, and we sell companies. We represent just sell side in our firm. Our firm is based in Atlanta. We're one of the offices with Sunbelt. In my firm, we focus on sell side and sell side only. And we represent companies that transact for between roughly 2 million and up to about 75 million, 100 million in transaction value. So we do some business brokerage and we do lower middle market. We've got 8 professionals. Some of them work Main Street, some work lower middle market.
I just got to kind of give you a compliment. We have 89 experts around the country because we do the show in other cities. And I got to tell you, we're talking about business. Doreen, what she did is she broke up different areas of business each week. Today we're talking about selling a manufacturing business. And I thought that was the smartest thing. And no one else has thought about doing that but Doreen. So I just wanted to give you a feather in your cap.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
I love the way you break your show down. So, Doreen, how do you determine the value of a manufacturing business?
Manufacturing, trade for higher multiples than most other industries, except for technology, and then some medical device companies. But they trade for higher multiples than a lot of businesses out there, and it can depend on the industry and the products that you're manufacturing. So there's a lot that goes into an opinion of value. That's one of the first things we do before we actually engage with a client is we'll do an opinion of value, because for us, you can't know whether or not you're ready to sell your business unless you know what you're going to sell your business for on the open market. So that is the first thing we do is an opinion of value. And to do that, we pull from multiple resources. We pull from Edgar's, which is the SEC database where public companies have to report transactions if they're of material significance. We have 3 other databases that we pull information from. One sits right on top of the SBA lending database. So if it's a smaller company, we can see transactions that the SBA is actually lent on, very accurate, very up to date. We've got two other avenues of aggregate sites where we can pull public and private information. Those databases are full of information. We can see, who the selling company was, who the buying company was, what it sold for, kind of an overview of the financial situation of the company that was acquired, and then right down through structure. What was paid in cash? Was there any other type of consideration given? So we pull all of that information together to see what is going on in the manufacturing space in your specific industry or like products, to see what those companies are selling for. If you're a lower middle market company, and that's going to be defined as, your net income is, over $1 million, $1.5 million, oftentimes those companies we'll have an idea of what it's worth, but oftentimes we'll take those kind of companies to market without a price because, we can never really know what the true value is, because value is in the eye of the beholder. And there could be, another company out there that, if they had a facility in the southeastern United States, it could mean an extra, $5 or $8 million to their top line, or sometimes, $2 million to their bottom line. So we have a general idea, but on lower middle market, we usually let the market determine, because the values will come in somewhere around what companies are being purchased for. But depending on the synergies of the specific buyer, valuations, we've seen them swing, between 2 million and 4 million on 5 million or 6, depending on the size of the company on either side. And so So that's how we determine value and go to market on a lower middle market company.
I know there's a lot of different types of manufacturing. What are some of the hottest areas right now in manufacturing?
Anything that has to do with packaging. So that can be wood pallets, that can be that can be boxes, that can be cardboard, it can be container packaging, plastic injection molding, because more and more we have anything that we purchase show up on our doorstep now in some kind of a package versus going into a store. So packaging is in very high demand. And then anything that is a durable good is always going to be in demand. And then consumer-based products, food, private label, food manufacturing is very big right now. And we expect to see some things. The manufacturing sector is really growing, and with manufacturing, there's a big push to bring manufacturing back to the United States, which is great. And so as companies come back, we're seeing a lot of demand just for facilities as well. So
Doreen, we just
it's a good
got a
place to be.
text from a listener. Enjoying your show. What are your feelings on clothing manufacturing?
Yes, clothing manufacturing is, we've seen a few of those over the past couple of years, and they do sell well. And I think that the multiples there, the demand there is going to continue to increase, because what's driving that more than manufacturing just moving back here? Clothing is one of those things that it's very hard to compete with international pricing, but demand is there from the consumer. So that's consumer-led demand that's driving multiples in that space, because it is made in the USA. More and more people, thankfully, are looking for made in the USA. It's environmentally friendly. It's providing jobs here. So, consumers are very much more aware of where their clothing is coming from. So that space is a good space to be in right now.
I love it when you get your crystal ball out. So on valuations in manufacturing industry, what is expected to change? Is it going to change much over the next 2 years?
No, I don't think so. I mean, interest rates are going up, which typically always impact value and what somebody can spend for a business, because interest rates go right into debt service. So on smaller companies, that could have an impact for sure there over the next 2 years. Larger, lower middle market companies right now, there is just an unbelievable amount of money between private equity firms, family offices, holding companies, and then if you look at the balance sheets of some of these large public companies, there's just a ton of money sitting on the sidelines right now, just waiting to be deployed. And so we aren't seeing multiples drop in the lower middle market, because there's just more demand. There's more demand because there are fewer sellers coming to market, because they're hearing that interest rates are up, so valuations are down, and that's really not the case at all. Anybody in this industry is saying M&A is definitely picking up. We're seeing more activity on the buy side, and the way private equity firms work is typically they are getting money in from a pool of investors, and they're charged with making those investors a return on that investment. And people usually commit funds for between 5 and 7 years. And if the firm that they've put their money with hasn't done anything with it, or hasn't given them good returns on their investment, then they're pulling it out and they're taking it somewhere else. So these equity firms have to invest that money. They've got to put it somewhere. So fewer good companies on the market to buy, creates urgency on the part of those firms.
What type of buyers are looking for businesses in the manufacturing space?
Oh, it's from the small manufacturing, which are going to be Main Street level. So, a couple $1 million in revenue and between 2 and 500,000 in sellers' discretionary earnings. A lot of times that's somebody that's coming out of corporate America that's been in the manufacturing space or in the distribution space for their entire career. And they are in a position where they can go into business for themselves. It's usually something they've wanted to do for a long time. Haven't been able to because they've got, other commitments. They like the security of what corporate America provides while their kids are young and in school and that kind of thing. And then, so it's people that we call them corporate refugees, people that are done with corporate America, want to go on their own. And then lower middle market companies, those are going to be strategic buyers, private equity firms, and family offices. And more people coming out of corporate America. If the seller's discretionary earnings, the adjusted EBITDA is $1 million, $1.5 million, that is going to cover even up to $2 million in net income. That's going to cover a very broad range of buyers. So
I just want our viewers and listeners to know that if you're thinking about selling your business, I mean, it might not be today, but it might be tomorrow. It's really important that you write Doreen's number down, Sunbelt Business Brokers. It's 770-936-9099. One of the purposes of a show like this is that you can find some of the best talent when it comes to selling your business. And I know for a fact Sunbelt Business Brokers, because I've dealt with them in other markets, this is like one of the finest business broker companies in the world. And Doreen you handled Georgia too, because I've noticed we're starting to get people outside the Atlanta area contacting us now with the TV show.
Yeah, we do. We cover all of Georgia, and depending, usually it doesn't make sense for us to go outside of Georgia, but we cover the Southeast. It depends on the business really, but we do have offices just about anywhere where your company is going to be. And then we've got industry expertise in our office. We do a lot of manufacturing, distribution, medical technology, and B2B services. In our firm, we've got I think right now our combined industry experience is 82 years. And my office has transacted over 800 companies between our team of experts in our firm.
I know that people are out there who are listening right now are wondering, what will a potential buyer expect from a business owner who's selling their business in regards to training and transitioning after the completion of the sale? Because that's got to be important too.
It is. If it's a Main Street manufacturing company, then where the owner is going to step in, the new owner is going to step in and take over. That transition period, depending on what's being manufactured, can be as little as 6 weeks to 3 months is the average. In a lower middle market company, you really, unless you have somebody that you've been grooming to take your place, you've got somebody that can step into that role, you're usually looking at between 18 and 24 months that someone's going to want to keep you involved in the business. And so that's where it's never too early to start preparing for the sale of your business. We always tell people, start thinking about selling your business the day you start. So you're building everything towards, towards that sale. We love to be in front of people 2 or 3 years out, but if you're a lower middle market company, you're going to be expected to kind of stay involved at some level for usually 18 months.
Now, do you find that a potential buyer wants to visit the project?
Yeah, they will. And we really limit that exposure because confidentiality is key when you're selling your company. You don't want anybody to know that your company is for sale until after it closes is the ideal situation. So typically what we will do is we will, when we take it to market, we cast a really wide net. As the buyers inquire, we will, if it's a Main Street size company, we will require, it's a financial buyer, we'll require resumes and financial statements before we release anything on your company to them. We put together a confidential information memorandum that goes into a great amount of detail on your business. So that they can get a really good understanding after they've signed that non-disclosure, non-compete agreement. We have their resume, we have their financial statements, we know that they're qualified, and they've signed that non-compete, very importantly. Then they get that book. So they've got a good understanding of who you are and what your company is. That first meeting, from there, if they're interested, we hold that first meeting in our offices so that that meeting is to learn about you as the seller, hear more about the employees, the day-to-day operation. It's really kind of just to get a feel of who you are, the culture of the company, how you're doing things. And those meetings typically last an hour or two. And then if they're interested from there, and if you as the seller are interested in them from there, then we move to on-location visits. So, ideally, we are bringing one set of buyers, maybe 2 sets of buyers at the most through your company. Because with manufacturing, it's not the same. To see it after hours just normally doesn't do it justice. So those buyers do want to see it during the day when it's operational. And so ideally we're not bringing through groups and groups of buyers into your operation. Most of the meetings all take place in our offices here in Atlanta.
I've always wondered, Doreen, what happens to the employees, on the transition of the business?
Yes, employees are key, and oftentimes, a lot of times, buyers will buy a business for the employees. Like first and foremost, it's the employees that make the business. And it's interesting because one of the reasons for confidentiality is you don't want your employees to know, and it's really the fear of the unknown. The employees are scared to death that the buyer's going to come in, let everybody go, bring in all their own people. On the flip side, the buyer is scared to death that they're going to come into the business and all the employees are going to leave. And that never really happens. With the sale of a business, it usually means almost always that there's going to be more opportunity for your employees. And for a seller, that really, those management meetings that we hold in our offices, those are, you're interviewing them just as much as the buyers are interviewing you.
Right.
You're going to want, the sellers are very, very keen on making sure that whoever they're passing the baton to is going to take care of those employees. And I've seen sellers take less money with a buyer that they think is going to take better care of the employees or offer the employees more opportunity down the road. If you have what we kind of call sacred cows in the company, these are people that maybe have been with your company for years and years and years. They really don't have a role so much in your company anymore. It's what they're doing is really kind of been automated or it could be automated. It could have been outsourced 5 years ago. But they've been a great loyal employee for 25 or 30 years. And they're really there because they've been so loyal. If you've got people like that in your company that, really, there's not really that position isn't needed anymore. We really kind of recommend that maybe you, transition them out rather than a buyer. It can just be, I've sold the company, you've done a great job, maybe some kind of a severance package or something. It's a little, it's just more of a kind thing to do rather than have a buyer come in and just cut them loose. So if you've got people like that, that's something that you really need to think about. And then with a lower middle market company, if you've got a CFO type of person in place, depending on who the buyer is, if it's a strategic buyer, a lot of times that is a position that will be eliminated. So it's something to think about there too.
So we only got about a minute left. Is there a best time to sell a manufacturing business?
The best time to sell is always going to be before you have to. For sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great answer. Great answer.
You want to think about that. Really, the best time to get an opinion of value is really 2 or 3 years before you're ready to sell, because we don't charge any upfront fees at all.
Right.
I think we're probably one of the only firms that doesn't charge upfront fees. We don't charge upfront fees at all. We sit on the same side of the table with you until the company sells. We're always happy to do an opinion of value and sit down with you and go through that and let you know, what your company is worth, why it's worth that, what you could do to increase that multiple. And we don't charge for that either. We love to get in front of you sooner than later so that you can plan. And then we have to know, we don't charge to do that opinion of value either, because we can't know if we can help you until we get that done, until we get a good look at your company. And, you can't know if it's time to sell until you have that. So that's just a starting point for us.
Well, if you're watching us on TV, you've seen us scroll the number at Sunbelt throughout the show. If you're listening on radio, the number there is 770-936-9099. And we totally endorse Sunbelt Business Brokers and what Doreen Morgan is doing there. Doreen, thank you. The great part of the show is we're getting to see you again next week at usually 10:25 on Wednesdays. And we want to thank Doreen for coming on, taking time out of her busy day. We will see you next week.
Yep, you will. You will. And then, some of our other industry experts will be on too. We've got some M&A.
We are so excited. Thank you, Doreen. And this is the Ask the Expert Show. We will see you all next Wednesday at 10 o'clock with more Ask the Experts.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert Show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.